Back to the top story, Bill Clinton is doing some healing in Martha's Vineyard with his most important supporters, Hillary and Chelsea. And Danielle Serino reports on fathers, daughters, and broken promises.
Now
her father had just announced to the world he was a cheater. But on the day after President Clinton's admission in the Monica Lewinsky scandal, Chelsea Clinton acted as if nothing ever happened. She stood by her dad, even though her mother seemed to distance herself, and she smiled and waved like the first daughter is expected. But on the inside, therapists say, it was likely a very different story.
I am certain you'll see that Chelsea is very vulnerable, very sad, feels a tremendous amount of shame. Her activities outside of the family are going to suffer. She's going to feel guilty. She might even feel suicidal at times. But her whole world again has come crashing down.
Now this matter is between me, the two people I love most, my wife and our daughter, and our God. I must put it right.
After his speech, opinion polls showed the public had forgiven him.
We all humans make mistakes, and this was probably the most fatal mistake he ever made in his life. But, you know, it happens. It's just one of those, you know, the old saying, the flesh is weak.
But according to experts, adultery is a mistake that sometimes cannot be corrected, not just between the spouses, but the children as well.
She's like in between the mother and the father, so it would be real hard for her.
Therapists say for many daughters, their fathers are the source of security and protection. And when that's taken away, all sorts of problems arise.
If my dad ever did that, which I know he wouldn't, it would take me a while to kind of recover.
Well, these families say they haven't experienced infidelity. We spoke to several young women whose fathers had committed adultery. They wouldn't appear on camera, but at least one daughter called it the most painful and embarrassing situation of her life, and it ruined her relationship with her father.
You'll find out that these children don't trust anymore, that their entire world of trust has fallen by the wayside. Not necessarily just trust for the opposite sex, but trust in itself for the whole world.
And as one father pointed out, forget about failing as a role model to the world. He sent the wrong message to someone more important, his daughter.
I would be very, very ashamed of myself too if I did that, because my daughter too will be getting married, and I wouldn't want my daughter's husband to be doing exactly the same thing I did to my wife.
But perhaps by watching what Chelsea is going through, having to cover up for her father and endure public embarrassment, families who are going through the same thing can learn something. That a, quote, critical lapse in judgment, as Clinton called it, can last a lifetime.
Adultery in a family is devastating. It creates a terribly unsafe environment for kids to grow up in.
What do you think about the Clinton crisis? In your opinion, should the president resign? We'd love to hear from you. Call us with your vote. Dial 1-900-680-7771 for yes, 1-900-680-7772 for no. Each call will cost you 50 cents. And we're going to have the results for you on 7 News at 6:30. 7 News, of course, will continue covering the Clinton crisis coming up in just 10 minutes. You're going to hear from a sex therapist who thinks the president is actually addicted to sex. Plus, we're going to go live to Washington for the latest fallout from the Starr Report. So keep it right here on 7 News. Back now to the Clinton crisis. While some people were surprised about his affair with Monica Lewinsky, we all know this is not the first time he's had an adulterous affair.
That's exactly why one South Florida sex therapist believes the president is addicted to sex. 7's Lisa Baldwin has more on this theory tonight. Lisa?
Well, the experts call it compulsive sexual disorder, a driving force that pushes addicts to push the envelope sexually. Now, some therapists speculate our president is a likely candidate willing to risk just about anything to satisfy a dangerous sex drive.
Is the president addicted to sex, dangerous sex, that if discovered could cost him everything? A therapist who has published several articles on Clinton's sex life says he suspects Clinton is a sex addict.
Any sane, normal person would say, stop. You've got too much going for you. You're president of the country. You could lose everything. But of course, when you continue to go the next step and the next step, you really have to wonder about your own compulsions and addictions.
Heisman says Clinton meets the criteria of repeatedly engaging in dangerous sexual behavior that could bring dire consequences. Monica Lewinsky has testified that she and the president fooled around in a study off the Oval Office, that they kissed in front of a window, and that she gave the president oral sex while he was on the phone with a member of Congress. Therapists say the endorphin rush of knowing you could get caught brings temporary happiness.
This is that total thrill almost, that absolute bizarre thrill that we, if we're not afflicted with the addiction, cannot understand in our wildest dreams.
I feel all right. Or just I feel that thy two hands did upon my royal body cop a feel.
Oh, madam, not I.
Hollywood pokes fun at the need for doing it dangerously, but therapists insist the affliction is serious. Much like a drug user continues to use drugs, a sex addict uses sex.
To continue to use, despite adverse consequences, then I have to say either he is or is at tremendous risk to be a sexually compulsive individual who we would term a sex addict today.
Now, therapists say that sex addicts are typically liars who lie to protect their addiction, and it may afflict a lot more people than you'd think. Therapists say that 6 to 8% of the public is sexually addicted, and that all sex addictions have an element of danger.
All this high-tech baby talk brings back the old debate, nature versus nurture. Lately, nature seems to be winning. My boss and natural man, Matty Lesham, is here to get to the baby's bottom. Matt, B.
Thanks. Look, how badly do we as parents screw up our kids? Almost anyone would agree that parents are the single most important element in how our kids turn out, right? Wrong. A new, highly controversial book debunks this idea and says that it's basically genetics and the environment. Let's drill down with our guest, Dr. Arlene Heisman, and her son, soon-to-be Dr. Jamie. Okay, parenting, is it basically over? Are they just there to, you know, house us, feed us, and send us on our way?
Oh, no, I think they're much more important. They teach you your moral development so that you can make good decisions in your adult life.
We've thought that for a long time, and the people used to think that the earth was flat, and now they know that it's not. This woman, Judith Rich Harris, basically says in her book that we've been fed this psychobabble since the Freudian days, and that parents are really just there for the first few years in life, and that peers actually are what make the difference. Jamie.
Mom, it shouldn't come as any surprise after all these years that I don't agree. Actually, I don't think parents are really that important today. In 1990, as opposed to the 1950s and 40s, we're starting to see parents in more of a facilitative role. I mean, it's now the friends and the peers.
Tell us a little bit about that. You work with a lot of youth, right? Do you see how their parents influence them versus how they're influenced by their peers and how they turn out?
Well, Maddie, the definition of parenthood is being fair, consistent, and available. And I got to tell you, gangs are fair, consistent, and available too. And whoever gives them this absolutely unconditional love and brings them into their fold and creates the culture for them.
That sounds like we should be very concerned, though. It sounds like the gangs are becoming the parents for these kids, and that they're not turning out well.
I still think that the parents gave them the ability to make better decisions with their peers, so that when these gangs come along that are so fair and so consistent, they can see what's right and what's wrong.
Let me just focus the issue for a second, okay? Parents are reading this book. It's a big controversy. It's on the cover of Newsweek this week. Do you think parents are going to read this and think, hey, you know what? We don't have to be so concerned if we breastfeed little Julia for the first 3 years of her life, or she won't go to law school?
I've got to tell you, I think there's a cop-out here, okay? It's a way for parents to get out of parenting. I don't believe this woman has really good research to show what she's saying. It's a terrible assumption that the parents have no influence.
Let me cut you off. This is going to be the final word. Jamie, what do you think?
She might be not educated enough to do this type of thing, but she brings up a great point. Let's face it, the corrective emotional experience for kids tends to be their peers. It tends to be the absolute group out there which holds them and hugs them. Moms and dads can't keep kids in a vacuum
That is going to be the last word. It's clearly a big controversy. Parents, stay on the lookout. We're going to hear a lot more about this.